So good evening, guys. I've got the latest update on my first person squad based shooter, Boots on the Ground. Now, I've been working on the very first scene from the game, getting it working. Excuse me, got a bit of a cold. Now, right now I've simplified a whole bunch of stuff. I decided that I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time working on graphics that I'm probably just going to redo later anyway. So what I've done is made a whole bunch of low poly graphics and ran it on just basic shading with an overlay that gives it kind of a Borderlands type look by outlining all the edges just to make it look a little bit nicer, for mostly for my own sake, just while I'm playtesting, and to give it a little bit of a bit more polished look than just standard low poly graphics. Now what I'm working on is the very first scene of the game, trying to get everything working in here. And the background for the scene is that it's a mountain base and it gets attacked by commando type units from the other side, and you have to do a falling back action out of the base to defend it while the non-combat personnel escape out the rear. So I'm not going to show you the entire thing. I want to be a little bit of it at least to be a surprise when you actually go to play the game, but just to give you an example, this green right here is actually the navigation mesh for the characters, your characters and the enemy characters. This right here is a lander with a enemy inside of it. There's multiple bays like this that you have to defend. This is a non-usage object, this little quadcopter right here. It's just for looks, but it shows you what kind of aircraft would be in the hangar bays. Now, I had a bit of a trouble. I was working on the visuals because you won't be able to go outside the hangars, but you'll be able to look outside, so I wanted a really nice mountain valley overlook, but turns out the terrain system I was using doesn't support holes through the terrain, which meant there was no way to get inside the mountain base because you just run into a piece of the mountain. And I misspoke. It does support holes, but not very well. So it was a real pain in the neck to use, and I'm looking for another alternative to it. And I found one that looked really good but didn't support holes at all, so there was no way to get inside the base and have the base inside the mountain without the mountain blocking you from entering. So that's an issue that I'm working on, but it doesn't really prevent me from working on the gameplay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue with that. So what I've been working on today is the enemy AI. I'm starting that, and I'm starting working on just how the enemy works. Part of what I'm doing is trying to lay the groundwork for the future, so instead of programming the guns and things directly into the character, I'm programming triggers in. That way I can drop in different types of weapons and the same character will still be able to use them without having to have a complete code rewrite. Thinking like that's a little bit of a new experience for me. I usually try to plan ahead quite a bit, but to this level is a whole new ball game for me, especially since I'm used to working in 2D and stuff like that, where you don't really have to worry too much about that because rewriting a whole character is not that much of a exercise. Whereas in this game, rewriting an entire character and all its AI is more of an exercise than I want to have to deal with. So a little bit of work ahead of time certainly will make things easier. So right now, as soon as you start the game, this character will dismount from his ship, and as soon as he jumps out, he'll start looking for you. I don't have a whole lot of complex AI built into it, but he'll figure out where you are and start heading up the field. Once I've actually got some of this working correctly, I'm planning on having it so that the commandos have checkpoints that they're trying to get to, just as if they were real people following a real mission plan. And not only that, but the nav mesh that you see here is just that. It's literally just a map of where these characters can go. It doesn't tell them anything else that's useful to them in a combat situation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have points scattered throughout this map, hand placed, that are tied to each other. I'm still working on a tool to do that for me a little bit faster than hand placing and hand coding each one individually. And what we'll have is points where the AI, both your guys and the bad guys, will know that this point provides cover from another point and stuff like that. That way, if they're being shot at, they'll run a quick bit of code that checks where the enemy shooting at them is, what it's closest to, what node it's closest to, and then what node provides the best protection from that attacking area. That way they can actually hide behind cover fairly realistically and maybe add a little bit of better gameplay than just a straight up the middle shoot 'em up. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a quick run so you can see what it looks like. Now you can really see that kind of toon effect with the outlines here. It's actually fairly subtle, but it has a really big impact and makes the game look a lot better. And you can see if you look in the bottom left hand corner, my heads up display actually shows attempting to communicate with drone. This is because I was actually able to get the drone working for exploration and stuff like that, which I'll show in another video. But I wanted to have a placeholder there that actually showed that you can use a drone, but it's just not in game right now. And right now you can see this AI coming around the corner. He's focused on me. I was able to get the pathfinding to actually turn the object around and look pretty good without tilting around in a screwy fashion. And you'll notice that he's not actually noticing me go by. That's because he's not actually tracking me. He's actually tracking where I was when his boots hit the ground the first time. So I'm just using that for testing purposes. And as you can see, his velocity hasn't stopped because there's no update to tell him when to quit moving, which is like I said, it's just part of the building process. So once I have this updated, they'll either be able to track the player, track other objects, track other characters, or just try to take waypoints in whatever their battle plan happens to be. So to show you around the rest of the base a little bit, I have a command center right here, which I've left dark, and I think it looks really cool. So there'll be some more detail. Like I said, this is mostly just placeholder graphics for now, but I wanted to give the right effect even without spending a whole bunch of time on it. So the main exit for the base is out that way. You can see our guy over there still meandering around. The main exit is out that way, and in the storyline you are going to try to defend this room from the attack on the hangars long enough for all of the non-combat personnel to exit this way. And when you get out this way, when all the non-combat personnel have exited, this will be detonated and it'll collapse, so it'll no longer be an exit. And you will have to fight a falling back retreat this way towards the barracks rooms. So the base is laid out in a logical manner. There's a pillbox down at that one end that can strafe the entire length of this corridor. And then these corridors are all switchbacks and dogleg corners going all the way back to the barracks and back out the back side of the mountain base to a special escape area. So you can see that here's the barracks. It's pretty simple, but it kind of gives the right effect. And if you notice, there's a little bit of a line right there that I'm not entirely sure what that is. It's an issue with the combination of the shader and the way that the rooms are put together. So I'll have to work on that later. But for right now, it's just enough to give the real feeling that I'm trying to get while still minimizing the total amount of work that I have to do. So there you go. I will show you real quick, if I can, just what my drone system looked like. So we've got to go to the other scene, the original scene, I believe it's the test scene. We're going to open that up. Okay, so that's actually gotten corrupted. I'm not sure why, so I'm not going to be able to show you that. What I can do then is go ahead and drop a drone in with our character. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into game objects, and I'm going to find a drone, drop it in here, say right there. If I scroll all the way down, you'll now see that we have a drone in there. And what I have to do is I have to go into the player character, and I have to make sure that I have editable children, and I have to go down to his screen, and I have to assign the drone to that screen. That way everything knows how it works. So now when you play the game, we should be able to see the drone system in the heads-up display. Okay, we're part of the way there. Now it's showing that it's connected, but it's not actually showing the mesh, which means now I need to come back down here to the skeleton surface override, and find the resource, which is local to scene. What I need is so you use the surface material override, and then it is, give me just a second here, it's been a minute since I've actually put this back together. So viewport texture, and you have to assign the viewport path, and we assign it to the drone camera. And the way we have to do this is by opening the drone as a editable, and then do the same thing with it that we just did, and we select the viewport, and that should do it. So now when you hit the ground, you can actually see the view from the drone, and you can see yourself walking around, and if you use the right set of keys, you can control the drone backwards, forwards, left, right. I've got a very, very simple system for moving up and down so that it's super easy to use. And if you look at the little green arrows moving up and down, you can see where I've got it. That way you get a good drone feel, but with an absolute minimum of complicated controls. And I can fly this little sucker all the way around in here, and I can go check on what's going on in places where I can't actually get to. So this is a lot more useful outside, but you can totally see how it would be useful even indoors, just for getting a good idea of what's going on around you without actually having to get yourself in a bad situation. There's a whole lot of really cool features that I'm going to try with the drone system. Suicide drones and other things like that are just the start. The combination of tactics that should be possible just using this little guy like this is pretty cool. You can get a long way away and actually still figure out what your targets are and tell your guys where to go and all that sort of stuff with a lot more flexibility than you can if you're just sitting there yourself. So I'm just going to fly it back in here and sit right here, and there you go. And even with it in your heads-up display, you can still walk around and just like normal, and doesn't impact your ability to fight directly, only because you have to move your hands to a different set of keys on the keyboard. And I did that deliberately because I wanted it to feel like a real drone. You can get your heads-up display and it's not in your way or anything like that, but in order to actually fly it, you got to sacrifice some mobility of your own. One last thing that I'm pretty pleased with, if you notice, if I come out here and I fire, I've added some effects to the player gun as well, not just the character gun. So, and not only do I have a muzzle flash and the sound for it, I actually have an actual muzzle flash. So if you go into a dark area and you fire, the whole place lights up. It was just a little bit of work. It wasn't a whole lot of coding. It wasn't particularly difficult, but it made me feel a lot better about it. It makes it feel a little bit more polished and has more punch when you actually go to fire. And you notice that it has an actual very long range. It's hard to tell, but you can actually see that light reach out way down to the end of this tunnel. I've yet to try it with other characters firing away, but I'm pretty sure it should be pretty wicked. So that's the end of the update for today, guys. That's Boots on the Ground, Devlog 4. Thanks for watching.